I was in a room without windows, or even a door. It was a huge room. There was no lamp to be found, but it was bright. The entire ceiling seemed to function as the light source. Around me were people around my age. At first sight, their races seemed to be completely random.
Included there were 9 males, and the remaining 4 were females.
Some were still unconscious, and others were already standing with their guard up.
And for some reason, each of us had a book lying by their side.
What happened? Why am I here?
I felt dizzy, maybe due to being drugged to sleep.
At times like this, it is best to not stand up too quick.
As I identified the situation around me, I reached for my gun.
However, as I expected, it was gone.
Waking up in an unmistakably kidnapped state, I knew fire weapons and the like would be confiscated. It is only natural.
However, even the wire that was sewed in the hem of my clothing and the explosives hidden in my shoe soles were gone.
All of them, without exception.
That is when I realized.
I was captured by the very organization I worked for.
I had a feeling this would happen.
It came to me when I was told about this shady top-secret mission.
Moreover, they told me it was not an order. I was free to accept the mission or not, they said. Not only would I be presented with a huge compensation, but they even promised to let me retire from service after the mission. In other words, they told me I could say goodbye to this rotten life of mine.
You would truly be an utter fool to refuse an offer like this.
Or a homicidal maniac, I guess. Of course, when they were willing to go this far, it couldn't be a decent mission.
Perhaps 99 out of 100, no 999 out of 1,000 would not return alive, or something. They were most likely able to give such offers because, from the beginning, they did not intend to pay anything. Of course, I knew as much. Despite knowing all along, I'm still here in this mess. Failing to remember, I sneered at myself.
Then, someone called to me from the side.
It was a young man presumably younger than me, but unfortunately, he was not from the same country.
I silently shook my head. He probably understood the situation too, as he didn't talk to me since.
People from all kinds of countries work for my organization.
Most of us only understand our mother tongues.
When our age finally hits the second digit, we are forced a life of military training from dusk to dawn.
We don't get proper education or anything.
We can't read or write our own language, let alone learn other languages. Of course, there are also those that are born from parents from different countries, and being raised abroad from a young age have learned multiple languages, but they are but a minority. I also made an attempt of greeting the guy on the opposite side of me in my mother tongue, but he too silently shook his head.
At that time, the girl right in front of me raised her head. It seemed she finally got to her senses.
Resistance to drugs is different per person, but people like her are the ones that usually die first. Being slower than the others can kill you. As soon as our eyes met, her face filled with surprise. Does she know me? Who is she?
Wait, I think I have seen her somewhere too. The lass stood up.
As expected, that must have made her dizzy, and with a grand sound she tumbled down. At the sight of her clumsiness I remembered.
So you are still alive, huh?
Raising her upper body, she nodded.
The lass knew a small amount of languages, and I heard her mother came from my country.
Children naturally learn the language that their mother speaks.
How good. You are alive too.
Of course I am.
Don't put me in the same category as you.
I met her 3 years ago.
We were both survivors of the 13th Crusade, a large-scale Legion mop-up operation.
Of course, we were in different units, but once the operation starts, what unit you are in doesn't matter shit.
All battlefields are like that, but this one was even worse than usual. At the time, I was 16, and already a senior soldier, but even I knew my chances of survival were only about 50-50 despite that. In the midst of the melee, I found an idiot that stood stock still in front of the legions.
In an instant, I knocked her down before our surroundings were reduced to ashes. It wasn't an act of mercy or anything that admirable. We soldiers are valuable goods. That's why we save our comrades.
Or rather, we don't waste them.
That's the regulation. To my surprise, the idiot was my age, so she was suddenly thrown into the battlefield without even having received any proper training. It's no surprise she lost her head seeing the legions from up close.
Legions bear the resemblance of human beings.
They were once human after all. Many infected with the white chlorination syndrome face death, but some survive.
By turning into rabid monsters, that is.
The urgency of exterminating the legions is not simply because they attack humans.
Legions are a huge source of infection, creating new patients of the white chlorination syndrome. This mysterious disease emerged 30 years ago, and to this day no cure has been found. Maybe it was a disease spread by the white giant that came from another world.
Although there is no specific remedy, preventive medicine exists.
The problem is that it is impossible to mass-produce this luciferase medicine.
Besides, its effects have only been confirmed among the young.
The younger, the higher the efficiency.
Thus, children with high physical ability are selected, administered with the valuable luciferase, and assigned to the extermination of the legions.
The international organization that trains and dispatches these children is the Hamelin Organization. The name was taken from a fairy tale about a piper that assembles children and leads them away, but in my opinion, it is a name of extremely bad taste.
So, why are you here anyway?
I told about a top secret mission.
High compensation, release from service.
You are free to accept or not.
Right. Her eyes opened in surprise, but she understood immediately and nodded. Until that day 3 years ago, the lass had quite naturally been going to school, so if anything, her learning and comprehensive abilities were higher than mine.
I wonder if everyone in here was offered the same deal.
I took a good look around me again. Maybe we are from all different places because we are brought here with the expectations of our countries on our shoulders. At first sight, it doesn't appear that people besides the girl and I are planning to share their intentions with each other.
People that can refuse it are not here, I think.
She was right.
Everyone strongly wished to escape their current lives.
What we were doing was murder, genocide. After all,
We are told that our opponents are monsters without a shard of intelligence, but firsthand, they look unmistakably human.
and we incinerate them alive.
It is said that the white chlorination syndrome is passed on by body fluids like blood and saliva. So by shooting them down, we spread these fluids. Therefore, we are ordered to restrain from firing our guns whenever possible.
We don't wish to inhale anything dangerous ourselves, so we don't complain.
However, seeing creatures that look just like humans die wrapped in fire is no pretty sight.
I incinerated my first legion when I only just turned 10. 9 years have passed since then, but I still can't get used to it. No matter how many times I see it, it is never pleasant.
This thing. What do you think it is? It looks like a book, but it cannot open.
The curious face the lass tried to open the book.
The books that were left near each of us were very thick, and the covers, that could either be black or deep grey, had nothing written on them.
Hey, don't touch that so carelessly.
In her panic, she let go of the book. Don't you are on me, Quiche. I let out a spontaneous sigh. This part of her has not changed one bit over the past 3 years, even though it was just for a while. The lass and I worked together after I saved her.
I could not afford to leave folks without any battle experience to chance. Luckily, she was a quick learner.
With only a few instructions halfway, she managed to keep up with me without delay. Her physical abilities were also formidable.
They had to be, otherwise the lass would not have been selected at the age of 16, no matter how high her receptivity to luciferase was.
However, when we could no longer avoid being split up, I thought she would die.
After the operation ended, we had no means of contacting each other.
Good job surviving that.
You sure have good luck. She violently shook her head in denial.
Because you let me escape.
That's not true. It was an error of judgment on my side.
We split up because we were surrounded by legions. If we would run in opposite directions, at least one of us would be able to run away. That's the kind of numbers and disposition the enemy had.
I obviously have higher chances of survival and more value in combat.
So if I have to make a choice between me and her, I should be the one going down the safer route.
Yet I chose the impossible option.
I must have been possessed.
That's why I was filled with a feeling of discomfort as I remembered.
I felt irritated. Until this very day, I have taken effort not to remember. When she opened her mouth, wanting to say something in return, we heard a quarrel from a corner of the room. It was a guy and a girl. I thought they must have happened to understand each other, like us, but that did not seem to be the case. I don't know what the reason was, but it must have been a trivial matter. They were cursing at each other without understanding what the other said. Soon the girl slapped the guy. It sounded painful, yet no one tried to intervene. But I could not blame them.
Each and every one of us has received enough training to fight off a legion barehanded.
If you were to step in, you would have to prepare for the possible consequences.
The young man's face turned red, and he grabbed for the girl.
At that moment, we witnessed something unbelievable. Suddenly, the book at the feet of the girl opened.
Even though she didn't touch it, or kick it with her foot by accident.
From the opened book, suddenly a black hand emerged.
The hand quickly enlarged to gigantic proportions and grabbed the young man. raising him in the air.
With an astonished expression on his face, he was crushed to death.
The girl was dumbfounded too. But it did not end there.
The book that belonged to the young man started emitting a strong light. I thought another black hand would appear, but I was wrong. His body was sucked into the book, not to be seen again.
Along with the young man's body, the light from the book also disappeared.
Then the cover's blackish color turned into aquamarine, and a pattern formed on it.
It was an eerie pattern that resembled a human face.
This will be the end of part 1 for Grimoire Weiss Backstory.
I only plan on doing 10-minute long videos, since this take quite some time to have it. Text to speech. If you enjoyed, smash that like button and subscribe.
Also turn on notifications for when part 2 drops.